Welcome everyone, Dr. Thor here. Get ready for Gnosis. Well, I want to talk about the ultimate system. Now, I was working on this for a few years and unfortunately was unable to get it done as most things. I mean, unless you have huge amounts of money to hire semi-qualified people, because how do you find a qualified person who is a radionic expert? How do you find a metaphysical expert? How do you find a subtle energy physics expert? Well, they don't really exist. So you're going to have to find somebody that maybe has some qualifications. So I can't really even assign a basic accountant to work on my website because of the fact that, what's this expense, though? I don't know what a hyper resonator tube is. You use that in your top rider. So the whole idea is these are the kind of things you run into in life. So it's very difficult. The other thing is you always run into people that are interesting in the alternative science field, and they are alternative thinkers. They are people that are not really functioning well in society. So you can't really get things done. I've had recently in the last 5 years had two partners. One of them, Kenyatta Long, is an excellent writer and a great metaphysician, but, doesn't really have a lot of business skills that you really need. And people don't want to put the work in. They're not going to put that long term in. And then they just don't want to get involved with the minutiae of everything. And that's part of the problems. And then I had another partner who was just batshit crazy. And the whole idea is that you run into these problems that you get involved with it. So you always try and find somebody. But the bottom line is that successful people are involved doing things already. And unless you're going to wave $50,000 in front of their nose to get them interested, they're not in it. So nobody's going to build something. That's what kids and teenagers do to a certain extent. You live on that. But, people who are successful, have talents, well, they can make 40, 50 grand out there. What are you going to offer them? They're going to do what? What, they're going to think you're going to be a church where you donate your time to? Well, this is not a reality. So these systems, unfortunately, which I had formulated fairly well, but, to put things in concise terms, to teach people well, is very complicated. Even doing basic writing things is difficult, especially if you have dyslexia and have problems. Well, putting out things is not that easy. Publishing Kindle books, etc. appears to be easy, but, there's an awful lot of problems you run into with pages and all sorts of things. It's an arduous task that takes lots of hours. Well, of course, at least you could pay somebody to do that for you. That's one thing once you have a finished product. But in terms of finding anybody qualified to do anything, it's really a difficult situation. So, it really comes down that, I am the heart, soul, and consciousness of this organization. Without me doing almost everything, it doesn't happen. Now we have a few key people, thank God, some good fulfillment people who take care of their end as best they can. But, everybody has their certain limitations, etc. So there are certain things that you can get people to do and certain things not. And then it takes a lot of training. It's not that anything this organization does is difficult, but there's an awful lot of little things that you have to learn. And this is like any job. There's a huge learning curve. And it's difficult to pass information on at a distance and do other things. There's lots of little things, and it takes time to learn everything. So this is part of the problem. So getting anything new out there is difficult. And what I've really done now is really boiled down to do one project at a time to get all these things done. Eventually, I'll come out with the ultimate system as I continue to develop technologies, etc. But all of these things are difficult. We were going to come out with a fantastic software program that people could use to really plot every day of their life using the many known and powerful tools out there. So let's talk about these known and powerful tools. As I said, eventually I'll come out with something, but okay, I had a little bit of glitch there. Oh, you can use a lot of these systems right on your own here and try and put them together. Now, we came out with looking at, well, what are the technologies out there today that work for people and are tried and true and really have been used for hundreds of years? Well, there's many. And there's a lot of scientific things to take your biological entity that you are, which is very, very flexible. Now, the problem with biological entities is that you're constantly in a flux of energy. You're in a flux of consciousness. Some days you're on, some days you're off. And, we've all done this, particularly as demonstrated with sports people. Well, you can go and play a sport someday and you just can't go wrong. The next day you go there and you just can't go right. Why is that? I mean, there isn't that much of a difference in you, but there is. There are many, many factors out there that affect you day to day, hour to hour. And what are they? Well, there are many, and these have to be researched and put into. Now, there was the good old, which was extremely popular in the 70s, which are called biorhythms. And there still are a few books on that, and it certainly is interesting, and you can really chart your biorhythms now for free online. Just punch in biorhythms, and there are people that will you punch in your birth date, and they'll tell you how your biorhythms are. So you can actually get it free. They used to have little handheld calculator type devices and so many other ones. I've shown those, I believe, on my channel here, and you can look up those as well. All those devices, which are fascinating, are all, they're 30 years old. They no longer work. So they're not indefinite meters. They were only worth $30 to $40. You expect them to last forever. And it's unlikely if you make something that you're going to plan for more than 20 years. So all of these are invalid and they're fun to look at, but they're basically worthless. And I bought several of them thinking they would work, and they are now in the trash can. So this is the way it goes. So biorhythms, of course, is one of those. Now, we're talking about things that you kind of plot. Of course, there's the bottom line of everything in life to build your empowerment, which is centering, visualization, and mind gym, occult gym activities. This is the critical basis. There's not much more to talk about with that, people. I have it all there. If you want to be powerful in what you're doing, you've got to have the centering course, you've got to have the occult gym course, and you've got to have a visualization tool. It's not really complicated, and you also should have an advanced psychic training tool. Now, these are your core tools you use for life, and this is what you need to do. So it's really all there. But what are the other technologies to kind of give you insights? Well, many years ago, I was very much into divination and using the runes for everything, and found them to be quite powerful and correct. Now, the only problem with divination, and the reason why I gave it up, is you got to be very careful, because the divination becomes the driving force that you manifest. So if you look at these things and you find that they are credible, well, then it goes from the fact of reading them to following them. You have to be very careful, and that was the problem with divination and why I stopped it. But I think I'm going to go back into that, but that's one of the major ultimate systems. So you have biorhythms. These are effective. You can get it for free online. How is it that day? Now, what we wanted to do is actually have a calendar and a scientific program that would put together all these factors into one giant particular system. So, which would do the synergistic that I love. I always use synergy. Another little glitch there. I'm having problems here. But the whole idea is I love synergy because I think everybody has... basically life is this million-piece puzzle. So throughout life, no matter what it is, you keep picking up little pieces and assembling your puzzle. Very few people get all the pieces, but you can get a large percentage of them. If you reach gnosis, it means you put the puzzle together. So this is very difficult for people to do because you're stuck in your realities and what you believe from other people, etc. This is all part of the problem of what we need to overcome. But part of this is your biorhythms. And of course, this is a very interesting system, and it has proven to be very effective. It was used by, particularly the Japanese were big on this, and they used it for truck drivers and medical personnel and everything else, and found they had a dramatic improvement on the problems people had. That if your biorhythms were really low, you shouldn't fly planes, you shouldn't drive trains, you shouldn't be delivering big driving trucks. So this all proved to be very, very powerful and effective. And, your life is about finding, ultimately, kind of like a card game. What are card games all about? I mean, when you analyze any kind of games, and particularly poker and everything, it's a game of missing information. And you want to get as much information as possible. So you have missing information. The information is what your opponent has in his cards. What is in the deck, what is not in the deck. So all of those things is what you look at for your odds and how these things work. So the bottom line is that that's what you have to do. Excuse me. So anything that can help you, you want to put into the mix. Do you want to live by biorhythms? Well, I don't think so. I think you need more information. I don't think that's the end all and be all. It's a synergistic system. You want to take all these things, push them together for one greater, better conclusion. So what else is there other than that? Well, I just mentioned divination. Everybody should be good at divination or use it as a tool. Now, this can be tarot cards, this can be runes. I mean, they have divination systems just about on everything. You got to find something that you kind of lock into. There are Celtic stones. I mean, it's just really endless. And they have tarot decks that pretty much cover everything from the Lord of the Rings to King Arthur. You name it, there's a tarot deck for that. And there is a divination type system out there. Bones. What else is out there? Seashells. I mean, it's endless. And you can look through that and find out what attracts to you. If you're a person who always has loved the ocean, well, maybe using seashells is a good thing for you. If you feel connected to some sort of Celtic or Nordic heritage, well, maybe you want agams or runes. So these are things you look at, but a lot of things are very neutral. The Book of Runes by Ralph Blums is a very neutral, easy to use, and effective runic system, and you don't really have to be into it. It just, I think most people have found that to be a very interesting system that they can connect to because it's relatively simplistic and easy to understand. You have these very simple glyphs. But divination is another, and there's a wide range of it. And as I said, find something that you hook into that you particularly like. Now, the other thing is, which is few people seem to look at, is because we're looking at biofunctioning. How are you functioning? And then we're looking at energetic surroundings of you. So how are you functioning because of your bio? And these energies are taken in for many hours. And how are you functioning with your basic system? So these are all things that we have to look at in the bigger picture. So we have the actual, so when we move on, there's circadian rhythms. Now, circadian rhythms, which is a lot of people call it your body clock, your inner time. Well, if you're going to make super decisions, if you're going to do very important tuning, if you're going to do very important dialing in of your radionic machines or projecting energies out there or using your tools, well, there's going to be optimum times where these things are good and not. And, there is a lot of this out there. Now I don't remember what it is, but it said that these are the two best times to do things because your energy is low. Well, that's right. So if you're functioning at a very high level biologically, meaning everything in your system is working well, do you think that's going to create better visualization? Are you going to be able to connect to your target better? Are you going to be able to gain information better? Well, of course you are. If you do things at off times, well, you're going to get bad information. I've done a lot of things when I'm tired just to get it done. It's not done right. I don't get the best results that way. This is why in my training system, the most important thing is to do something at high enthusiastic levels for a very short period of time. So generally you can overcome micromanaging your day by, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it now. I'm all psyched up, and I'm doing it for, a couple of seconds, really. 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1. Can you be psyched up for that long? I think you can. So you psych yourself up to do it right. So you have to, that's how you start any kind of thought form, any work you do. You're psyched up. I'm ready to do this. It's going to come out perfect. Boom. Move on to the next thing. Then what you do in terms of a training program. So you have to first be at that reality. You then have to, of course, do whatever practice you're doing for very short periods of time. This either is a couple of minutes or can be a few seconds. Don't think that energies are not projected instantly. They are. Now, spending lots of time is counterproductive, but I've explained that with other things. So, very, very important. And the third aspect of my system is the fact, do it often. So you do the same procedure often. Since it's short and powerful, it works really well. Anytime you draw out, anytime you might make it special, every time you want to do this, creates a. When you get ritualistic in terms of dress, attitude, and everything else, this becomes kind of a big, massive problem. The whole idea is to put on a uniform or even a t-shirt or something else. Well, this can be helpful because that's all you use it for. maybe has a special glyph on it, etc. You're psyching up to do the work there. So that can help you in just part of the psych up process. If this turns into ceremonies and having to spend lots of time, well, generally this is not something you want to do. Now, it is a good idea to do kind of a massive ritual once a month. You take a bath, you make sure your house is cleaned out. All these things are nice to do once a month and it takes you maybe an hour. But that's the key to being successful. Now, moving back into these systems that help you, well, as I said, divination can be very helpful. What are your biorhythms? Are you high in thought and this and that? So the biorhythms are very interesting, very easy to figure out. You can get information online, as I said, for free, even books online for free. You don't need to buy anything. You just have to understand that system out there, and that's why I'm putting it. And as I've said, you've got circadian rhythms. Now, these are the rhythms of the earth and how you fit in your personal energies, which are even deeper than biorhythms. They kind of are similar in some ways, but not. Now, there are circadian rhythms that affect all life on this earth, fish, plant life, etc. So circadian rhythms, your inner time clock, all of these things are very important. For again, when are you most potent? And that may not be the same as your buddy, your mate, or anything else. So these are the kind of things that you have to look at. So what are the other things? Let's move on here so this doesn't turn into the Gettysburg Address. So the other things you want to get into is astrology. Now, this is one of those things that have been poo-pooed for many years. Now, astrology came from the ancient Egyptians, and they kind of knew what they were doing in most things. But it become very distorted and perverted. But I didn't know the astrology came from the Egyptians. Did you know that as well? Almost everything comes from Egypt, just the way it is. So, but the bottom line is that astrology is very effective, not your newspaper nonsense. If you think that's astrology, you're wrong. You should have your astrological chart done every year. By somebody who links with you. And you're not going to know until you have it done. But you need to have somebody do your astrological chart, and they're going to tell you, and you should try and find somebody who can tell you how you're going to function every day of that year and have this done every year. Missing pieces of the puzzle. He who assembles the puzzle wins. So there was one study done on astrology from drunken, goofballed, heavily educated, imbecile moron who came out and said, astrology, we tested it, it doesn't work. Well, I find astrology is very, very true. People that have certain signs, almost, I would say 80% of the time, are very similar to their sign. They have the attitudes that sign states they have. Well, that's more than coincidental when you have billions of people that fit into that category. And people want to bring up so many. It doesn't matter. It's what we're using today. It doesn't matter if the sky is different. It doesn't matter because you're not changing the sky understanding. You're just changing nothing of it because you move with whatever it is there. So that's another bogus thing. And whatever that study was done by some inapt retard really has no importance on our lives. We're going to believe what is told to us by people, then we have a problem. And that includes all the parapsychologists who seem to be so stupid it isn't even funny. So when we move on to all of those things. So astrology is one of those things, and you can try this. A lot of times you can get very inexpensive readings. I would try and find somebody with some credibility that you can work with to a degree. Missing knowledge. So you don't want to sign contracts, make moves, have surgery when it says you're in the dumper on any of these things. It could be the difference between life and death, and that's not in a dramatization. So we have to understand that. What is the other things? Well, another very important tool that is seriously, and in India today, and people want to give India an awful lot of credit for things, that they're high evolution and knowledge, the great yogis, the Vedic documents, the Hindus, whatever you want to give credit. I don't give credit to anybody. I think they all have good information that some of it can be used. But, I don't give credit to anything because you look at all the people that follow this, and, India is not exactly paradise. So, and neither is China or anything else. For that matter, neither is anything in the West anymore because it's kind of the whole world is a sewer. But do they have good stuff? Damn right they have good stuff. Now, the Indians are very big on astrology, and guess what? The next area of the ultimate system, numerology. So, numerology is a very fascinating area, and I've experimented a little with it, and I haven't found that it's that great, but part of the pie Yes. I mean, I looked up some numerology things, particularly when I was naming some of my new businesses I've started in terms of titles, and they went through the most successful companies out there, and guess what? I don't know how this somebody could even. It's amazing how people could put up such crap. So they went with Microsoft, Apple, and several others. And guess what? They all had different numbers. So there wasn't a number that they were successful with. Well, Apple did this and Microsoft. They're all different numbers, so there isn't a number. So whatever number you come up with, your business is successful, right? No. Well, the point is that we structured things based on numerology is, again, difficult. And there are numerologists. And here again, you have to be careful that you get a qualified person who gives a damn and who knows what they're doing. But again, numerology can be of the mix. And what we're trying to make is a giant, very tasty stew. And anybody who understands stews or soups, etc., they're made from many ingredients, and that's why they taste so good. But if you put a little too much spice of one type in your soup or in your stew, well, all it tastes like is whatever that is. Oregano? Garlic? Well, that's not a good stew. What you've made is a garlic-flavored something. Well, that's not a good mix. Do you want to taste a little garlic? Yeah. Do you want to taste a little oregano? Yes. It should be faint, giving it a complex flavor that is just perfect. But too much of it shows you are a bogus idiot. So the whole idea is that that's what we need to do. So that's part of the ultimate system as well. Now, these are not things that you directly empower you, meaning radionics. Radionics is something you're using, empowering you. There are then training practices, which I covered, the centering, the visualization tools, all the things that go with this are very, very important to follow and understand. So very, very important process that goes on there. But they are not directly empowering you. They're telling you when to do something, what is your best time, and then you have trained yourself. So when is the best time to do something? Very important. But that's not the only thing. Are you empowered enough to do it? Meaning, have you done the consciousness things? Are you in a physical fitness level to now get into the fight? And are you ready now? Are you able to hit back properly? That's where the tools come in, radionics, cells, etc. Now you're taking these abilities you have, doing it at the right time, and then you are using a tool to empower it. That's the key to success. Now, what I'm talking about right at the ultimate system is all these missing puzzle pieces. So, numerology is a great, great area to get into. So, these are kind of the main areas that you want to get into that really affect you. And there's two types of affecting you, but it comes from the outside. So if planets are affecting you, and apparently they seem to, people are very high on this. You talk to some people in astrology and they think that this is the ultimate. I don't particularly agree, and you can counter you. People, we're in retrograde. Well, I've countered retrogrades using equipment. The whole idea is you can bounce those things off of you. You can counter the energies. There's many ways to correct that. And that's another thing you can do with tools and companions. Now, they just laughed at me when I told this to a astrologer out there who thought that your entire life was ran by that and wanted to pick my pockets. But the bottom line is this technology is what's out there. So you can do that. You can buffer it. And if you're going through a bad retrograde or you have problems, well, that's good to know. But it's also good to know that you can counter it. So this is an imbecilic way of thinking that you can't do anything about it. You're somehow in the hands of fate. And of course, no occult scientist is ever in the hands of fate. As you're a manifesting scientist, you're not in the hands of anybody but yourself. And if you have negative people or negative energies affecting you, you go out and change it, baby. You're not here being flopped around in the wind like a bad flag. So the whole idea is that's not the way it goes. That's part of empowering your life. So these are the critical areas that we know. Now these things, all of them except biorhythms, which I believe came out, I'm not sure when that was made public, the 40s, 50s, and reached popularity in the 70s. Other than that, everything else here has been going on for hundreds and hundreds of years. Numerology, astrology, these go back hundreds and even thousands of years. Divination, hundreds, thousands. These things are around for a reason. Now, like everything, you have to be careful. And you don't want to fall into the trap that I did after doing lots of divination and start following what your astrology chart tells you. Well, this is going to be a bad day. So, think, that's a bad day. What are you doing? Well, you're manifesting it by thinking that. These are guideposts. So that's the only problem with this kind of technology is it starts becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy, meaning that, it's a bad day, so I'm going to make it a bad day. Subconsciously, you start driving bad, you start driving too fast. You need to guard yourself against that. That's called gnosis, baby, and that's, of course, what you watch as a high-level manifesting scientist. So when you take all this into consideration, you need to do that. So these are tried and true, and as I said, they've been around. Lots of societies use these today and have found them extremely helpful. But you do have to be careful. A lot of the problems, particularly in Indian society, and I've heard from a couple of people, is that because this guy wanted to marry a particular person and was terribly in love with them, but their astrology and their numerology came into major conflict. Well, he didn't want to buy this, and he wanted people to be changed to do that. But you're not going to change somebody's culture. There's not much you can do about that. So the whole idea is that certainly you can try and bombard somebody with your psychic thoughts and put them on machines to try and influence them to move away from what can be a foolish superstition. But did the other things show to be? Were there other factors that are a problem? But, if your stars are total opposites and your numerology is totally opposite, well, you've got some big blockages in your life. This doesn't mean good things. So we have to take these things seriously. They're either valid or they're not. So if someone shows in a partnership or someone you want to work with and their numbers are bad or their astrology is bad, you have to believe that and move on. Of course, you've tested it. This isn't something you just do right away. But of course, when it comes to love matters, these are probably one of the most difficult things to come to grips with. But these are tried and true situations. You have to study these. You have to invest some money in it. You have to find people that are good. What does their astrology chart say to you? Did you find them when you have a chart done? Was that chart good that year? And what kind of information they give you. And never take general information. General information is worthless. They have to be pretty specific, unless it's something you can't give specifics on. But there should be very, very specific information, nothing general, period. So that's what you have to look for as well. To get some computer-generated program that gives you something general is generally not good. Now, certain things you can get programs for, which will cost you little or nothing. Numerology, even astrology to a degree, you can get general programs. I would prefer to work with a skilled person if there is such a thing. Now, the problem is that they may or may not be skilled. They may be using the same computer program that you have. Are they? What's their background? And then ultimately, is the information that they gave you correct? And not that this is going to be a good month, you're going to make a little money. Well, what month? And what do you mean a little money? Be specific here or shut up, because these things will influence you. When you hear what your astrology chart tells you, you're going to take that in and your consciousness is going to start to fulfill what you now have given credibility from. That's the danger to all of this and difficult to overcome. So mark my words here of the ultimate system and the ultimate flaw of it, which is manifesting what you've been told instead of seeing if something works. And this, of course, is what good researchers do all the time. I don't care what anybody's opinion is. I don't care what the science, good or bad, is for it. Does it work? And I want to see it work. And I want to see it manifest in my life, or I don't give a damn. It doesn't matter whether you think. It doesn't matter whether science has said this is valid. Does it work or not? And when you really get down to that, to so many people, is it just doesn't work. And then there are problems with it just doesn't work for you. This astrologer, this numerologist, they can't hook up with you for whatever reason or another, and that's critically important. But they're not going to tell you that. They're going to take your money and think they're doing whatever job they can. And of course, that's the reality of so many things. So we have to be very careful about these kind of things and understand what's going on out there. So, these are your main areas. Now, again, these are not preparatory empowerments when you're doing your psychic work, your centering, and these are not empowering techniques where you directly are putting thought forms out there to manifest by using energy cells, radionics, magical systems. So you got to remember this ultimate system ties all these things together, and this is the areas you need to study. And again, I wouldn't try and do this stuff yourself. Invest in finding a good astrologer, etc. Now, this is the same thing of kind of finding a good psychic. If you can find a good psychic who can help you, this is a fantastic benefit. And believe me, some of your most important successful people, including lawyers and other people, are using psychics. They're using remote viewers. Fine. Instead of saying, well, I want to benefit from remote viewing. Well, I'm going to go take this class and I'm going to read all these books. Well, I do that as a researcher and to know who is valid or not. But the best thing to do is find someone who can do this work and have them do it for you. They put all the time and energy into it. Pay a good buck for it. Not too much, but pay a fair price. And have somebody who is trained and skilled at this do it. You wouldn't be your own doctor. You wouldn't be your own brain surgeon. You wouldn't be your own dentist. You got to hire people that do this work because they have the tools, the expertise, and have been doing it many years. So it's important to do. So you should be putting money aside to hire professionals to do things for you. And this includes crucial rituals you need done, which this organization does as well. So this is part of it. But a little bit too many things happening and older in life that I get, you're better off paying people to do certain things as long as you get your money worth for it. But again, that's always buyer beware. Are they good or not? Do you get a good astrology chart? Do you get a good numerology? Do you get a good numerology chart, etc.? We had little technical difficulties there again. So the whole idea is that these are the things you need to look into, and it's worth investing money in it. We're going to try and find good people, and we'll let you know out there if you're a Patreon and a all access member. And of course, I'm going to expand upon these things for Patreon members. This is kind of a quick little intro for the general use out there. But these are things to look at, and we hope to have people that we can bring in that are good in these areas to assist you and go from there. So all of these are the little pieces of the puzzle that can make the difference between success or failure, and you'll know exactly what is going on there in the bigger picture. All of these are the critical areas. Figure these things out, and you have beaten the system. It's as simple as that. So we're hoping to put this together in some kind of big software program or some ways to connect people. But this is a massive job that requires a lot of money. But that's the system. People should apply it. These are the areas to make yourself successful. And if you put it all together, you win, period. It's really just as simple as that. Anyone who has any questions, and of course, remember, the core is always getting the proper training. If you're not going through my training systems, it doesn't matter how much information you have, you need to have the ability to apply it and empower it with the training and the tools. It's all part of the larger system. So with that, until next time.